Hey guys, welcome back to Study Collab. Today I'm going to be walking you through exactly how I write notes on my iPad. So my favorite note-taking app to use is GoodNotes 5. This is just because it's really easy to store and organize all of my files as well as write my notes in dedicated notebooks. The really cool thing about taking digital notes is that you can annotate all over your lecture slides as well as create your own handwritten notes. So what I'm doing here is I'm importing the lecture slides from my uni website. So all you do is click the export little icon at the top right corner and you can directly open into GoodNotes and you can name your file and put it in its dedicated place. To make things easy to find, I usually create a folder for each subject and then each folder will have a notebook as well as a lecture folder. So one thing about doing a lot of science-based subjects is that there's a lot of diagrams that can be really hard to replicate. So one thing I do to prepare for my lectures is I'll go through the slides beforehand and screenshot all of the diagrams that I think are relevant that I can annotate whilst the lecturer is talking. So you just want to click the lasso button in the toolbar and then circle around your dedicated area, and then if you tap that section it'll say take screenshot, and you can either save the image or you can copy and paste it if you don't have a lot of storage on your iPad, but I find it easier just to pre-save them all so it makes writing your notes easy and you don't have to flick between files. So onto actually writing the notes, I will first create a notebook to write them in. It's super simple. On the document's homepage, you just want to press the plus button and then click notebook. I usually title it the subject name, and then the options that I will set for the notebook will be A4 size in portrait, and then I will make the pages narrow ruled. If you're feeling a little extra, I even like to brush letter a little title page on the front cover of the notebook just to personalize it to my subject. So again, these are just the paper settings that I have. I usually do it on white paper and on the narrow ruled one, just so I can write straight and it gives me a guide to make my notes a little bit neater. I would say note-taking on the iPad is a pretty cool experience, but there are a few things that I have that help me to enhance that and make it even smoother. The first one is, of course, the Apple Pencil. This one is pretty obvious. You need a pencil to handwrite, and you can learn a bunch of cool tricks that make your note-taking experience a lot faster. You can double tap to use the eraser and a bunch of other cool stuff. The other accessory that has really helped me is the Paperlike screen protector, and that does bring me to the sponsor of this video, which is Paperlike. You guys probably know I love this thing. It makes your iPad screen so much easier to write on, especially if you like to draw a lot of diagrams or you do a lot of art on your iPad. Having this can be really helpful. I know it can be quite expensive, but I do think if you're investing so much on an iPad, having the screen protector there will really help you to enhance the experience. If you want to purchase it, then I'll leave all the links in the description. This is an affiliate link just to let you know, but I do swear by their products and I have used it for like the longest time. So the first thing I do when I'm writing my notes is I'll write a header. Usually it's just the title of the lecture. On the screen at the moment are the settings that I use to write my header. So I use the brush pen on GoodNotes. I reckon it's actually easier than brush lettering on paper because all you have to do is put more pressure on the downstrokes, but you don't have to slant your pen in any direction. The last thing I do for the header is use the highlighter tool on a pretty thick setting and draw two straight lines next to it. You want to make sure you have the setting on draw in straight line to make things easy for yourself. One feature that I like on GoodNotes that's not really on Notability is the brush pen tool is kind of like using a Pentel Touch brush pen if you were using paper. I also prefer the highlighter tool on GoodNotes. It's kind of like a mild liner. The color selection is heaps varied and the effect is like a lot more pastel and muted, which I think is a lot more appealing to the eye. Finally, I'll just take the ballpoint pen and write the lecture number in one of the highlighted strips. So besides the main header, I thought it would be a good idea to share these sort of 4 subheadings that I use on rotation to spice up my notes, if you like. I will just switch between writing in caps on the highlighter tool and then the brush lettering pen. You can use the highlighting tool on the smallest tip to write in caps and then use a ballpoint pen to write in smaller caps over that. Another one you can do is create this little shadow box. So I will write with a normal ball pen and then use the shape tool to draw a rectangle around that and then create the little lines underneath, and then you can use the highlighter tool to just color that in. And the last one is again switching between the highlighter tool, the ball pen and the brush pen just to create a little effect. I think switching between the different types of pens you can use really adds some character to your notes. And then if you really like to, you can even decorate with 3 little lines using the highlighter tool to, I don't know, to make your title more exciting. In terms of the main body of text, I usually will go by the lecture slide, so whatever the heading is on the slide, I'll make that a subheading with one of the headers that I just showed you. And then under that, I will either write definitions, I'll use dot points, or I'll write short sentences. To make my notes more cohesive and effective, I'll usually just stick to one color of the highlighter, so here I'm using the blue. And I'll highlight any definitions that I need to know, any keywords or like factors of something. If you want to bring attention to words that maybe aren't keywords but are still relevant, then you can use the 1mm tip of the highlighter tool and underline things. I find that really helps to differentiate different points. The last thing I normally use the highlighter tool for is to color in the little dot points. I usually just use the ballpoint pen and draw a circle and then the 1mm tip to color it in. So now onto the diagrams. I think this is a part that makes your notes look really cool. It's super easy to import them. You just click the image tool in the toolbar and then you can click the image that you want. You can crop it so it fits. All you have to do is tap on the image and then press crop. You can do the rectangle crop or the freehand one so it fits perfectly. Another way to add diagrams is you can trace over really complex diagrams if you want to sort of add your own element or own spin on the diagram. Maybe you don't need all the information on it, so you want to customize it. All you have to do is import the image the same as the first one and then use a ballpoint pen and trace over the parts that you want. This is a bit more time consuming, so I would only really do this if I need to customize a diagram to the relevant points. Once you've done tracing it, you can just press the image button again and press the cross. You can use the lasso tool to circle around it and resize it, rotate it, do whatever you want to make it fit in your notes. And then you can also color it in. I normally just use the highlighter tool again. As I mentioned earlier, the colors are quite muted when you use the highlighter tool, so if you want to sort of create some depth to your diagrams, if you just trace over it again with the same color, it'll actually make that section darker, so it's kind of like shading. The last thing I find really helpful about drawing your own diagrams is the fact that you can practice labeling. So for subjects like anatomy, that's all mainly identification. If you have the diagram there but remove the labels, you can practice identifying certain structures and even customize the diagram to make it easier for you to understand with only the points you need to know. Then I will basically continue that process for the rest of my notes adding in subheadings, dot points, numbered lists, as well as other diagrams, mainly just following the chronological order of the lecture slides and how they're delivered. And that's pretty much an entire page of what my lecture notes would look like. As you can see, it's pretty simple. I can manage to do this while the lecturer is talking most of the time, just given they're not like talking at super speed. But other than that, it's nothing too complicated. The last thing I'll just do is change the paper template to blank because I prefer to have it as a blank A4 sheet rather than the ruled lines, but the beauty of it is all your writing is straight because you used the other template previously. And then one thing I also discovered is you can add pages to an outline in GoodNotes. I didn't even know this feature existed before, but it's super helpful. I just make the first page of that lecture and title it like L2 if it's lecture 2, and then the title of the lecture. So then by the end of semester, hopefully you'll have a completed list of each lecture. It makes it easier to find. And that's pretty much exactly step by step how I write my lecture notes and all the elements inside it. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up. If you want to see more of my digital lecture notes, you can follow me on Instagram @studycollab, and also subscribe to my channel down below because I post iPad videos all the time. But other than that, I hope you enjoyed this video and thank you so much for watching. See ya!